Oh, please, I pray never again such a war like World War II. It was horrible. Doris Fedrid, DF. In 1938, I saw people moving from Germany. They were Jewish people, very frightened by Hitler's Nazism and the killings. They were moving to Poland because of fear. I asked my teacher because I was worried. I asked, "Do you think there will be a bad war? That Nazi Germany will invade us?" "That is nonsense," the teacher responded. Yet later, in 1939, the war began. In looking out the window, I saw a Nazi motorcade with a big flag with a Nazi symbol on it. Yes, that. I saw it and was so sad and disgusted. I told my father, "Go and hide." He knew from the past that they would come and take men for forced labor, and those who were too lazy were killed. My father did not want to, so he escaped. My grandfather said, "Oh, I will stay put." It was too late. So he hugged me. My grandfather said, "No," so they shot him. Me, I escaped. I saw the first shot, and as I ran, I heard and felt a total of 6 shots. "What are you going to do?" It was very sad. We had to bury him in the yard at home. We could not go to the cemetery to bury him, so he was there at home with some flowers. Later, I would see it and be reminded of him being there and felt so upset. They had a Star of David on them. It was made of 2 triangles, white with yellow and blue. Some people would take off their armbands too, sneak out to buy and sell goods, dealing on the black market, you know. This was a way to get money or goods secretly. The war continued. The Nazis wreaked havoc. They forced my father to work hard labor. This is the ghetto. They ordered him to help delivering different food, a variety of jobs, such as working with crank. I asked my mother, "Where is father? I want to see him." And she said, "You know he has new work on a farm, tending to the garden." I went off to see him. When I spotted him, he was drenched in sweat, covering his face. My beloved father, when he saw me, gave off a big smile, wiped his face. He checked the water gauge to see how much more he had to pump. The level was still far too low. It was terribly hard work to turn the crank. They worked in 2-man shifts. Every 2 hours. It was so tiring, so my father smiled, waved me over for the 2 of us to try. I was too tired and weak for that hard work. My work was doing wash. I had to help out by doing laundry in large tubs. We were on our knees scrubbing. All day long, my fingers swelled up badly, suffering from washing those German uniforms. The soap was bad, rough and abrasive. Those days we had no gloves to use. All of us women suffer the same problem, the swelling, splitting fingers. My mother worried. My father worked in an area that had some butter left over, and he would steal it and have me use it on my hands like a balm. It did improve things, discomforted and softened my hands. We would coat them in butter and wrap them in cloth. While working in coal, I saw the birth of my sister, and I thought, in the future, I do not want to marry and have a baby. It looked horrible, like a baby chick, all wrapped with a cord that had to be cut. I saw this and thought, no, I do not want to have such a thing in me. It was all covered with a sack. I kept thinking, in the future, I do not want to have a baby. Luckily, my birth experience was different. It was in a hospital. It was a very bad situation with my sister. We swaddled her up and tried to comfort her. She didn't even get a bath to clean her up. It would have to wait till we got home. My mother wanted to go back to the ghetto, so she slipped the baby into a bag as if carrying food. My father went with her and told me to stay in the camp working. They were going to see my grandmother, which was a lie, just so they could get home to clean up the baby. My grandmother did take care of her until 1943, when my mother asked a woman to take care of my sister. The woman accepted and cared for her for a few months, but in June she changed her mind. My sister was so quiet because she was deaf that the woman thought she was worthless and put her out on the street. A boy was skating and heard my sister crying. It was raining at the time. He called over a Nazi policeman. When he saw my sister, he thought, what a lovely, beautiful little girl, and wrapped her up in his coat and brought her into a Catholic orphanage run by nuns and left her there. Later that night, the woman went looking for my sister and couldn't find her. The next morning, she came to tell us. I saw her while I was watering some of the garden. The woman gestured, tell your mother to come over here. So I tapped my mother and pointed out the woman. My mother approached and the woman spoke to her. My mother was in shock. The woman said, I'm sorry, again and again. My mom was shocked and stunned. I tried to comfort her and keep her quiet. Because Nazis were all around, we had to go back about our work. My mother had to be patient. She told my father, and he was sorry this happened. Later, my father told a woman farmer about it. She said, don't worry, I will look for the baby. She went to the nun's house and entered saying hello. I would like to visit and see the many children here. May I? The nun said, yes, fine. She accepted and went in looking until she spotted my sister with her curly hair as my father had already described it to her. The woman thought, that's right, that's the right child. She was very sweet and quiet. There was a wall of bathroom. When the door opened, it would cover a board. The door would cover this section. You had to enter by scooting into it on your back. It wasn't a good spot. I only hid there once. It was very uncomfortable and hard to get out of. I had to sit tight in there. Yes, all day it was pitch dark in there. There was absolutely no light. None. Nothing, nothing. None. All I could do was be still, quiet, and sleep. I just sat and was quiet. I could feel sound, people searching, pounding, and stomping. I felt this bang, bang, bang. I was very scared. I will never forget this. There was a stove with brick and cooking utensils and shelving and a cupboard. We removed them all, but kept for later. We built steps down. Then we worked on the flooring. First we took a big door and put it on the floor with a layer of cloth on top of it. Then sand to make a hard and firm surface, and finally carpet. Then they stamped on the above floor. They would not hear anything below. My father made a false wall. He put in a cupboard to hang things from. There was a rolling pin for bread. It was moved to cover the door. We had a bench with pails and water glasses. And we would carefully move the unit, and 14 people would slip into the hiding place. We had to be quiet back there. Later one day, we heard them searching around. We waited all night quietly. Once my mother's curiosity got the best of her, and she peeked out of the roofing to see. I asked, "Tell me, what's going on?" She said, "Shh, be quiet." Outside people were being shoved around. It was very scary. We waited. Finally, after 3 days, my father came and said we were safe to come out. I was curious what had happened to our neighbor, as so many were gone. I saw a little girl sitting sad and quiet. I called my mother over to see. "Look at this girl, scared, hiding." We moved this big armoire and saw this small, frightened and quiet girl. "Where are your parents?" she said. "My parents were taken and gone." She was such a cute girl, 3 years old, with a big bow in her hair and a blue outfit and blue eyes. So sweet. Once it happened, my father was worried, thinking my mother and I had been taken to the trains by the Nazis. He came running, calling out our names. "Where is Leah? Where is Dora?" No one answered his call. They were all quiet, crushed all together. One man happened to hear my father. We were actually hiding in his house at the time, so he said, "Yes, I know them well. My nieces. He lied for us." Oh, the trains were horrible, such crowding. Some people did jump, breaking their faces and bones. They jumped to avoid being sent to be gassed. They overlooked my young age. They thought I was 18. My mother lied and said I was 18. So they accepted me for work. It was exhausting. It was easy to get sick. In this camp, we had red tag on the front and the back of our clothing. The number was in black ink, like number R87. There were many people in line before me. We wore the same clothes every day, same, no change, for the whole time the same clothes. We had to leave all our other clothes in the ghetto, 2 layers of clothing to keep warm during the winter. But in the summer it was so hot. We had only a little food. I became very thin. Before I had been fat, but I shrunk down to nothing. My mother was sick. It was frightening. It was a bad idea to be in the front. I was always in the back last. There were rows of 5, lines upon lines. Men and women were in different formations. There were no children at all, none. People would tug on me, so I knew when my name was called. They would pull on my sleeve and I would know. Different women would help me when my mother happened to be out somewhere else. They all knew, and I stayed quiet. They helped me. It was wonderful. We worked in the garden. Sometimes, when it rained, we would help with the potatoes, cleaning them off. There was a group of 4 women who helped do this. It was tiring. Sometimes I was sick. I had a high fever and lay down to sleep on a cot and neglected my work. When it was time to go back home to the barracks, my mother woke me up and I got up on my feet to go back. My mother was worried as I was so hot. She told me to drink and drink and drink. Then we started walking back as a group and arrived to the camp. Again, I noticed my mother heard things and she went to the window, so I went to look with her. And we saw people running into the building to hide. They had planned it. I knew there were about 500 people in there. I thought, Mom, maybe we should join them. She replied, no, no. She had been told that they would come and drop down gas in a pipe. I thought it was for ventilation, but really they secretly sealed it off so that all inside died. Yes, yes, in the camp. That building was really a hospital. Many people hid in this infirmary. They bribed their way in thinking it would be safer. The hush money did them no good. In the end, they died. Here and there, they kept selecting people, whittling us down to almost nothing. Until the last day in the camp, July the 22nd, we had heard a rumor, and after work duty, we returned home and saw people looking so sad standing around, and there was a full appel and all the names were read off the list. And when they said the name of me, someone tugged on my pants and I raised my hand and played calm. At night, in secret, some people cut the fence and decided to escape. Some stood up and were shot. At the fence with other people, the man in front cut the fence. I held on to the back of my father's shirt. When my father jumped, I jumped and squirmed after him. My mother did the same with another person, and I was last. It happened there was a person behind me who was pulling on me, and I had to shake him off to get loose. I heard that some people, when they got up and were signaled not to, it was too late. There were shots. Luckily, we exited into the other direction. Our side out was better. Their side of escape was no good. At night, my father went to the spot to make a hiding place. It was a very small space for me, my mother, my father, would have to lay. It was very shallow with a covering over us. There was the chicken crate, sand to disguise our covering, and sacks of bird feed. We had to stay there laying. We couldn't go out. The woman of the house would come every night to give us news. She would come, remove the covering, tell us the news, then cover us up again. We remained there all day. We would eat once a day potatoes. For the 3 of us, always the same, potatoes. You know a woman's period? What do you think we did during this time, my mother and I? We would take the sacks, you know. Yes, like you get potatoes in a sack from the store. We would take the sacks and cut them into strips and save them and wash them. We would leave them out overnight to dry. The woman would bring us cold water to wash them with. It was fine, no problem. We had no cotton or cloth to use, just these sacks which we had to save. Reuse the strips, lay them out, roll them up. We endured this for 8 months until we were free. Yes, flat. Sometimes I would ask my mother, I notice when the woman opens the door, you two are talking. What about? So my mother would etch it out on my arm to tell me the news. Yes, she would write the outline of the letters into my hand to tell me the news in Polish writing, of course, which I understood. Sometimes she would do it on my back, the same method. One day, the farm woman told us a friend had informed her that the Russians would soon be arriving. We said, "Really, we want to." She said, wait and see. There are still battles. The Nazis are still around. The farmer could see them about. My father said, wait, but we wanted to go out so badly. I was so sick and fed up with this hiding for 8.5 months, just staying there waiting. When we finally got out after the war, it was hard to walk again, such pain in our feet. I still have pain sometimes, and I have to soak them in hot water, and finally they feel better. It was so hard. We had to crawl because we had to stay laying for so long. We went to one city where the Red Cross was to help people, many soldiers whose eyes and ears had been damaged. We were helping, and they had run out of water, so I was skipping. The snow had finished, and the sun was shining. I was skipping in the boots that they had given me, since my shoes had been ruined when we had to hide in a flooded basement before. All the seams had split open, and they were painful, so they gave me those new boots. They were dandy and nice. I was skipping along to get the water from a well when I saw a reflection in the water for a person standing over me. I looked up in shock and thought, Nazi. I threw the bucket and ran. I looked back and saw the boy getting his own bucket of water and carrying it away. He stopped dead and raised both his hands up when a Russian policeman pointed a rifle at him, asking, "Who are you?" The boy spoke Polish, so a Polish woman was called over. "Come, you speak Polish. Tell us what he's saying." He said, "I am a 14-year-old. I was shocked. He was so tall. I mistook him for a Nazi," he said. "No. See, when a Nazi died, he took off his Nazi clothes to wear for himself. You understood?" I told him, "You go off with the Russian policeman now and change." When he came back in nice, regular clothing, I clapped. We could still hear bombing and fighting going on. We were frightened, but my parents wanted to get my sister back. My mother really wanted to get my sister, so both my parents went to the nuns' orphanage. And the woman, the maid, who was cleaning up there, met them and said, "What do you want?" My mother replied that they were looking for my sister, Luba. The woman replied, "She's not here." They had changed her name to the Catholic name Luba. That's what they called my sister. The woman said, "She's not here." My mother asked, "Where is she?" "Some person has adopted the baby." My mother was so shocked. "That is not right. They need our signature to do that. That is not right." They called a Russian policeman, and the three of them went to the home that had adopted my sister. There was a babysitter there. The foster parents were not home. So they took my sister and brought her home. She was very sweet and quiet. She was 15 months old. The last time I had seen her was when she was 4 months old. We had gone 11 months without seeing her. I comforted her. She was very quiet. Oh, she was thin. She had not been well cared for. She did not get enough to eat. We had to teach her all over again how to eat food. She had the same thing, milk, 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 so her stomach could get used to it. My mother was worried and went to the doctor, who checked her out. They said, "You must start all over again, from milk to baby food, and build up." It happened the Russians asked me to help in the kitchen, peeling potatoes along with my mother. My mother couldn't do the work as she was sickly and had to tend to my baby sister, so I would go alone. I worked alongside the other women, but I was not comfortable with it. A Russian woman was always scolding me to peel faster. I would take my time at a slow pace. I had a hard time putting up with it. Many Russian soldiers would come in and approach me again and again. It wasn't safe, so I did escape. I told my mother, "I'm not comfortable. The Russians bothering me so much." I asked her, what should I do? They would hug me, wanting love. I did not want that. I was too young. They would grab and hug me and play with my hair, tugging on it. Not nice. They would catch me in a war hold. I would push them away. Different men would bother me again and again. I was young at this time. It was in 1944. I was 17, no, 16 and a half. Not even 17 yet, 16 and a half. We all lined up and they read off our names. We boarded at night. The boat was very slow moving due to bad weather. There was a downpour of rain. We were stuck in ice. We waited until sunup the next day to melt the ice. Finally, it started to break up. The sailors broke it up with poles. It was slow. Many people were sick. I went above deck to look around. It was very nice and cool day. I saw boats passing us near England. Women slept in A and the men slept below us. My father would come to the A area to visit us. Yes, for my sister it was hard. She couldn't walk yet. So my father would lift her up, pet her, and walk around. I didn't hold her due to the rocking of the ship. I didn't want to drop her. I was young. I would play with a ball and make things pretending. My sister would grab at them and throw them away from me. I saw a baby crying. The mother was sick and the baby was in a pram which would roll due to the ship's motion. I got some string and tied it in a place so it would stay put. A man who was cleaning, a sailor said, "Good job." Before it kept bumping back and forth, the baby crying, the mother was sick. I got up and saw Lady Liberty and the skyline. I gazed over it. We were quite a distance still. We had to wait until 7:30. Then the police, FBI, brought us in a small boat to a canteen area. They called out our names, starting with A, reading them off in alphabetical order. It was late when we finally arrived, exhausted. My sister slept on the floor. "Please, may I have your address in Colorado?" I gave it to him, not knowing why he wanted it. He didn't say why. Later, I got a letter in Polish. I read it, then I gave it to my father. He read it slowly. He thought about it carefully and decided we would go to New York City to visit my Uncle Morris. We agreed to meet Fred there in the summer, June. When I met him, he brought me a bouquet of roses. Beautiful. I thanked him, and my cousin removed all the paper and put them in a vase. We had a good visit. I asked about his parents being gone. He said sadly, "I am all alone. I have no siblings. I got to know him more." I remember we had arrived on Tuesday and chatted. Again, on Wednesday we met and we went out and about. I told him, "Please come to Colorado so you can meet my mother. I would like to show you Colorado." He said, "Okay, in August." "Fine," I said. So after our week vacation, my father and I returned home. My father told my mother, "I am so happy, such a nice man. He can speak German well." We waited and kept our fingers crossed. Later, Fred came and we got engaged. Engaged and decided on November for the wedding. It was fast. Father died from starvation. There was no food, no medicine. His father died first in February. His body froze. They did not have proper clothing, as they had sold most of it, thinking the war would be a short one. The war went on and on. They thought it would just be temporary. It was very cold, and he died of starvation. Later, Fred's mom died 6 months later, on August the 13th. Yes, hunger. There was nothing to eat. It was hard. Fred told me stories of the camp, many people dying of the gassing. He had to clean up, do brickwork. One time it was freezing, yet Fred kept warm inside. The Nazis noticed and beat him 25 times. Broken knee, elbow, it was very bad. What I mean is, Fred had many layers of clothing to keep him warm. He stole the clothing of the deceased for warmth. They patted his back and felt it was too thick. They made him undress and punished him with a severe beating. Yes, 3 children, 9 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. I was so fearful many times. Sometimes I still hear stories that Nazis are around and we don't know it, so I'm very cautious. Yes, safe, but some people are still Nazis. Keep it quiet, we don't know. Please, no more.